we're lucky to have Ohad Levy, who works at Red Hat, and who's the primary author of Foreman here to talk. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Ideally, David's here from Ideally, Guild Group, and Verizon/Caremark for giving us the space this month. And with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Ohad.
Hi guys, so I hope you can hear me in the back as well. First of all, Brian, thanks a lot for organizing all. I know it's Friday. So. All right, so I'm happy to be able to talk about Foreman. Just for my curiosity, anyone here is already using it or knows besides Brian? All right, awesome, great. Okay. So I'll go through briefly what Foreman is. I'll try to do as much of a demo versus a presentation. So I think it's much better than to see something than just to talk about. And you guys feel as free as possible to ask questions and interrupt you as many times as possible. So what Foreman is about, basically we're talking about the provisioning of something, whether it's bare metal or virtualization infrastructure. It's about the configuration engine aspects and inventory and activity reporting. All of those which are optional. So basically, you can choose which one you want to use. You can use them all, and all of those are wrapped with a simple API where you can use and utilize Foreman. So roughly, in a typical system, so we're talking from a system point of view. Life cycle would be something like getting stuff that needs to be happening before you actually deploy the system. A good example might be DNS or other component that needs to be there before. Then the actual provisioning of the system and the initial configuration, and then the never-ending story of maintaining that system. In a nutshell, Foreman architecture is, maybe not in a nutshell, but basically we have, Foreman has a few components that he tries to orchestrate and manage. First of all is Foreman itself. That will be the web UI, that will be the API layer, mostly around database, authentication and so on. We'll talk about that later. And the main interface, I guess, will be between Foreman and Puppet. That's the, my mouse. So this interface where basically Puppet asks Foreman what to do with your instance, and basically then reports back both the facts and reports from Puppet. And for various orchestration components, Foreman has a concept of proxies, where the idea is to take, especially for bare metal provisioning, the idea is to extract components that don't necessarily have an API in your data center, for example DTP, and expose a simple API that Foreman can consume later on. So we basically support all variation of backend services. Those include DNS, DTP, TFTP for PXE booting, Puppet itself, Puppet CA, and so on. And maybe just one more point about the proxies is that proxies themselves are, in a way, an abstraction layer. So you could have various backend services like multiple DNS servers. If, God forbid, you're running a Windows DNS or DTP service, you can still use the proxy to manipulate that as well. So the idea is really to present this unified API which Foreman can later on consume. This comes from the point where we wanted to be able to integrate into whatever you guys have already versus to force you into working with our own stuff. So the idea is if you have a large enterprise with a lot of rules and a lot of preconditions, that it should be as easy as possible to get into your infrastructure and help steer it as possible. The other component is the integration to consume compute resources. So as I mentioned, it could be either bare metal, but we do support libvirt, RevM, which is the new Red Hat virtualization infrastructure. So you could think of VMware, but for free. EC2 and VMware are currently in the works, but there is some, I'll try to show that already if possible. So any questions so far?
Is KVM support?
Yeah, through libvirt.
Okay.
Or through RevM or Overt. Overt is the upstream name for RevM, like you have Bell and Fedora. So definitely, yeah. All right, can I go to show you some demos? Is that okay? All right. Okay, so when we log into Foreman, we have a few tabs here in the top. Each one represents something. In this case, this is my development setup, so I don't have many hosts, roughly around 20. So that's not representing much of scale, but I trust your imagination that if you have a lot of servers, that could be easily, basically it works the same. I think I'll start with a simple demo of provisioning, just that we can get something started. So I'll just click on a new host here. I'll give it a name. And then I can choose where I want to deploy it. So the idea is, again, make it as simple as possible. In this case, I'll deploy it. I have a local liver, basically that's revm. Here I'll choose my host group. The host group is a representation of so-called our blueprint. So basically, collection of Puppet recipes, classes, collection of variables, and all kind of operating system and hardware profile associated to it, which I'll go in a minute or a couple of minutes. So I'll just make it a simple web server. This inherits all kind of settings like my environment, my Puppet environment that I want to work on, who is my Puppet CA, who is my Puppet master, and all kind of already definitions of these are my Puppet classes. So Foreman basically will import your setup, and you'll see here your Puppet classes, not mine. Additionally, I can choose where I want to deploy it. So in this case, what's the DNS? And because it's bare metal, or because it's virtualization, not on a cloud, I'm actually choosing here which network I want to deploy it on. And the Foreman proxy actually provides an IP address automatically, or at least it can suggest one for you. Then the next tab basically is I can choose the operating system I want to deploy. So it could be various CentOS, Fedora, Debian, SUSE, Ubuntu, and God forbid Solaris as well. Hopefully no one offended. And the next step here again is our virtual machine. So in this case, this screen will look in accordance to the provider you're choosing. I chose over the revm. So I have templates very similar maybe to EC2 sizing or whatever. You can make up your own. And basically here I have one nick and one disk. You can do some more things like give it key value attributes and so on, associate owners, groups and so on. But generally, at this point I can submit. What happens behind the background is that all of the small details are sorted out, like DNS, DHCP, TFTP, Puppet CA, and so on and so forth, the actual VM creation, the storage creation, and yeah, usually it's a bit faster. I'm using Brian's mobile phone, and the server is located in Israel. But the machine was actually created, and we can hopefully see that it is in a second actually provisioning. Yeah, here it is. So, good phone. Right, so now we have a standardized PXE going on. The idea here is that it's fairly easy to consume, and you'll trust me when I say that the process is identical whether you go through, for example, VMware or libvirt directly for KVM or whatever. The process is a bit different for EC2, but roughly from a user experience point of view, the process should be the same. So really, the provisioning points should be as simple and straightforward, regardless where you're provisioning to. Obviously, when this actually process finished, you'll get basically Puppet will be installed. Puppet will start asking Foreman, Puppet will ask the Puppet master, that's going to be fine. The Puppet master will ask in turn Foreman what to do, who am I, and from that point, I think you guys know how usually works. All right, question?
Is this literally the same console as VMware?
Yeah. Yeah, we had to pull VMware a bit. Apparently VMware supports VNC, but it's really hidden. So, that works. All right, so back to slides. Demo is this. Okay, so inventory. What we have in inventory is basically, we got facts. So that means we got your normal factor output plus your custom facts in the UI. You could browse them, not very useful. You could search for them, that's probably very useful. And you can even use them for applying permissions. So jumping back to my screen here. So facts will just show us all of the machine facts. And I can just click on the machine. For example, I'll see its facts. Maybe if I want to see what's my Ruby version, I could also kind of do that. If you notice, you could see that the search line basically changes. So there's a whole search query language that you can use. We even will make you nice drawing of the fact. So if you got a custom fact, you'll have awesome, a graph for it. And if you want to see that machine, you can even click here. And you get that machine, which is actually with that fact. The search language is, maybe I can actually show the search language a bit. So the search tab exists here in most screens, and always in the context of the screen you're looking at. There is an autocompleter which is usually very, very fast, but because of the latency we have here, it's not as fast. But the idea is that you can, it basically suggests you or offer you various options to choose from, and then it will say, okay, I want to know when was the last report. I'm looking for servers with, in this case, I'm looking at the host tab, looking for servers that their last report was today, for example. And I can search for it, I guess, or if I don't have those, any one of those, maybe I'll search for something. Let's search for something based on facts, more interesting. Facts dot, this is dot, and then you can see here our latency. Try again. Yeah. Maybe I could search for something else, environment, maybe, and then I could do all kinds of operators on top of that, equal, not equal, like, so on. And obviously you get the result. You could also nest. You could do and facts dot architecture architecture equal x86, and you could use that to search. So the search language is something that you could, yeah.
I want to mention that this is a good way if you're working with the API to construct query strings.
Right, right. So I'll get to that point later, but every page here has usually a JSON representation as well. So by using the same search strings, you could basically limit whatever you are looking for, and just by adding format equals JSON here at the end, you should be getting a JSON output of those systems as well. So every single page has that, and yeah. Search that. The search is, I think, one of the most powerful things we have in the format. All right, going back. Slides. Next part is the node classification. So I don't know how many of you know how Puppet works in terms of external nodes, how this bit works, or whether you actually define your node statement within the manifest in Puppet. What Puppet has is something called external node classifier, which basically allows you to define the node statements somewhere else, and it's up to you to define it. Foreman offers out of the box a node classification interface to Puppet, where we want to give you the ability to basically associate your classes to a given machine. We want to allow you to support easily the switch handover between Puppet environments. I don't know if you guys use Puppet environment, but it's very powerful. Obviously group your hosts, because talking about one system at a time is not scalable. And allow you to offer you an alternative to the variable inheritance. While I know Puppet Labs guys are doing their best now to fix issues around variable inheritance within node inheritance and so on within Puppet, but we want to simplify that whole thing and just offer it from within Foreman versus from within your manifest. Obviously, we also want to show you all kinds of things like update many hosts as once. So, for example, assuming I use something where I search for a few hosts, I found what I'm looking for, I can select them, and then I can say, okay, I want to change, maybe change the environment for all of these. And then, again, sorry for the latency, but idea here is that you can simply select down here the environment you want to apply on those servers. So you can do all kind of bulk operations across multiple machines, and try to simplify your life, like change their environment, change mass assign of parameters, and so on. Reporting. So ideally, if there's something happened in Puppet, we want to be able to show you what happened, what's the status, what's going on. Obviously, we're going to show you the detail log, but we also want to help you search through your reports, because if you have lots of hosts, it's not so trivial to find out what's going on. So we want to help you to search using the same search mechanism. For example, if you're looking for something specific, maybe it could be a class name, it could be, I don't know, certain output you're looking within your manifest. We also want to be able to give you some sort of an audit log and also email. So if something goes wrong, not always you're logged into the UI. So on failures, you want to get emails, but you want to get email should go to the right person, not necessarily just to the administrator or something like that. You want to be able to get the emails alerting working for the right people. So in a nutshell, here's our server we just deployed, or I deployed it. I guess I did another demo, so I called it demo. But here's a simple report where nothing really interesting happened. So we just get the metrics. This is not an interesting report. So by default, when we're looking at the reports tab, we'll see only the so-called interesting reports. And maybe I'll look at this system. I see I have a failure here. So I'll just click on it, and maybe there's some warning, so I'll just want to see the error at the moment. And I can see this machine probably tried to do I guess when reading it, it probably tried to do change own on a NFS mount file system or something like that. So I could easily see that this report this host is having some sort of a failure, and I probably can see also that this error probably existed for a long time. So I could probably figure out, if I'm not sure how long it's up to you how long you keep the history, but here I could probably figure out when, using either the search or something else, figure out when was that thing happened. And to some degree, I guess I can even search and look for the configuration. The Puppet has a version tag of each manifest, or at least recent version of Puppet, so you could probably search for that as well. All right.
Is there any other alert mechanism, or just email?
So,
Like SMS or something?
at the moment, no, but there is a very easy to put your own group. Like there's a place in the code where you can basically,
Insert something else.
yeah. We didn't generalize it, but probably we can fairly easily get a hook. Then you can implement your own
I think
SNMP,
SMS
SMS,
would be
whatever,
pretty good.
yeah, whatever alerting. So, as a community, we're really open to feature requests. We like to implement things that make sense, and we'll be happy also to try and assist implementing it, not just taxes are welcome, that's good, but also try to help people to get their stuff done. What else do I have here? Okay, so I mentioned Puppet CA. Basically, this kind of happened behind the scene. You didn't see it, but that machine that we deployed basically got their certificate and all that portion done. But we do offer certificate management for those machines which are not necessarily programmed by Puppet. So I can probably show the screen here. There is a more section with lots of stuff. If you guys would be interested, I'll be happy to go through it. But one of those things would be the certificate management through the Puppet proxies, the Foreman proxies that we have. And I could just, in this case, probably could do directly certificate. So it would be very similar. I don't know if I have any pending, no pending certificate request, but will probably be very similar to using Puppet CA or Puppet Cert directly. But you can do it through the screens as well. Okay, so we can trigger Puppet runs, assuming you run Puppet as daemon. We have a very nice integration to Puppet doc, so whenever if you want, you can see within Foreman, when you look at a class, Puppet class, you can look at its documentation. We do work with store configs, even though I probably won't recommend it these days because of Puppet Labs trying to get rid of store configs. And we do support multiple Puppet masters and multiple Puppet CAs, so allowing you both to handle a fairly large setup where you might have a singleized CA and many Puppet masters, or maybe small setups where you have one CA, one master, same one, but multiple of those, or whatever combination, because the idea is that Foreman can act as a single point, a single place that you go to see your whole infrastructure, not just data centers or stuff like that. We do have, so Brian mentioned that, we do have a RESTful API. I did mention the search, and a lot of people are using that, I think, as an alternative to store configs. So I don't know, you guys probably, some of you know store configs as a mechanism to share or pass information between different systems. So we can use the search in a very similar fashion. The main difference is that the store config has a scaling problem, so once you go into multi-location, the database has to be in one of the two locations, or if you have n locations, then you have it stuck. So in this case, you could utilize Foreman to search, and that's simple REST call, very lightweight REST call, so not much of a burden. On top of the API, we have currently two main projects. One is written by Brian called the Foreman CLI, which is a command line interface to extract information from Foreman. And the other is Remote Admin, which is an Android/iOS application that can basically present most of the information you saw here within your device. Both of these are basically third party. Brian is the third party in that matter, and also Corey, the guy who wrote Remote Admin, there, and we're really happy to have such great usage and users on our API layer. Right, user management. We do have the ability, first of all, to authenticate to existing sources, and if you don't have any one of the LDAP interfaces, then you can have an internal authentication layer. We do offer RBAC, so you could do stuff, basically filter who gets to see what and change what and so forth. I'll show that in a second. So maybe a bit of a demo of the RBAC layer. So first of all, you could define your roles. And roles is something you can define by yourself based on your requirement. So Foreman comes with some default roles, like manager, someone who can only view, and someone who can, I don't know, various roles. So I just give you the overview of the roles. You can see here who is allowed to do what. So the edit host user basically can't do much besides probably go down here. Yeah. Oops, sorry. You could probably view host, create host, edit host, and so on. So this is basically, you could create your own, most of the actions in the UI are mapped into something that can basically be consumed. It's a permission that can be consumed by a role, if not open a bug, but generally it's a simple way to say who is allowed to do what, and then obviously the screens are changing accordingly and the user don't see those. But I think in terms of systems, because host is one of the most main point in Foreman or main use cases, then just create or edit host is too generic. So what we did was to apply on top of that another layer of filtering. So for example, I'll choose a user. Let's say I'll take my user. And I could apply, so assuming I've chosen the right role, I can only view host, but I want to filter that I can maybe only see my own host, so you can associate host to yourself or to a certain user, either user or a group of users. Or maybe you want to say, oh, only on this domain you can do stuff. The rest of the domains you shouldn't really care about or know anything about. And the same goes for the host groups, which are the description of the application, and maybe some facts. So you could say only if you're running in my custom domain location fact, only then you'll have permission to do stuff on that host. So you could basically filter it down and say, oh, maybe only on my x86 Red Hat host you have permissions, not to other hosts. Whatever. So the idea here is really, Puppet is so complicated to some degree. You know, your Puppet infrastructure can become very complicated. You want to delegate a lot of or operation responsibility maybe to the operator who just want to deploy the thing that was tested and certified by someone else, and someone else just consumes that. All right. How to install Foreman? We actually started creating, or actually give something called Foreman installer. It's basically based on the Puppet modules that we provide. Trying to get the best practice, or wherever possible, provide a good default for the whole setup of Foreman, not just getting it running, but actually usable. And that will include, besides Foreman component, we also provide a bootstrapping way for Puppet masters. And for example, we obviously offer it with passenger integration and all the best practices out there. But not just that, we also integrate with Git, so you can get your own. So I would assume the best practice to manage your manifest today is with Git. And on top of that, there's a very popular model of Git branches, which maps to Puppet environments. I don't know if anyone of you guys use it. So all of that could be out of the box simply by using the Foreman installer modules. And we have configurations for everything, so you can say I want it or I don't want it. Basically, you can turn on and off all these features. So it's really, really easy to consume and to get your own Foreman installation running. Those modules work on Red Hat base, CentOS, whatever, Fedora, and on Debian base, Ubuntu, and so on. Right. So, about the project a bit. It's in the summer. It will be 3 years since I started it, and since then we got about 50 contributors. As far as I know, and in the open source business, it's really hard to know how many users you got. I heard about 5,000 installation, 5,000 active hosts. And overall, Foreman moved from a single project to be a collection of multiple projects these days. They're all under this GitHub organization page. Again, as far as I know, taking out from Foreman Wiki, a few users, people who uses Foreman. I guess most of those people are usually either large enterprise or someone who has a large scale setup that needs a good, or it needs or at least Foreman is a good way to manage its system. This is a few of the users. I think we got also a very awesome community. So really, the IRC channel or the main people are really trying to help each other, and very, it became kind of a lot of friendships that grew out of there in the last few years. So I'm very happy about that. So I have some links, but before me talking too much, any more questions, you guys? Yeah.
Is there any plan to integrate the provisioning part into OpenStack?
Yes, it will happen very soon, or hopefully soon. So one of the things we've done recently, and I think one of the reasons why the last release took a little bit longer, is we integrated with a few good cloud provisioning libraries as a middleware, which do offer provisioning to OpenStack as well. So mostly what is required is the amount of time just to get the right screens, draw out the right, where each one has a different concept of naming or whatever. Get that, and do the testing. So really, I don't think it's a lot of effort to get that. Especially, popular solutions, EC2 and OpenStack. Assuming OpenStack is stable enough, then we could deploy it. Cool. So, yeah.
When you get a chance, can you just demonstrate this adding one class and just running like the Puppet run,
Yeah.
and just follow like the audit trail and so on?
Yeah. Right. So, in terms of, let's see. So let's look for host here. What do we call it? Let's see. Let's look for the host we just created. So just edit this host. So here you could basically say, I want to apply, I'm guessing, so let me see if this works already. Just copy this URL. Yeah, so just create a web server out of this. So I want to make add SSL maybe to this guy. So I could just basically apply the class and click submit. Now, to be honest, on my environment, I didn't set up the run Puppet component correctly in my demo. I'm sorry for that. It won't work. You can try, and I guess we've got an error. But you just click run Puppet, either here or for the multiple, you select many hosts and let them run the parlor. And what it will do, it will simply run Puppet. So you get an internal server, because it's not. I know that I made a mistake there. It's not configured. But if we wait, in this case, then this machine will have SSL. Try my luck. But that's supposed to be as simple as that. Really nothing more than that.
Excuse me, can you use it to run arbitrary commands? Or does it have to just be a Puppet manifest? Can you say like...
Well, in terms of architecture, if you looked at the diagram, there was nothing about the clients. On purpose, we didn't want to install anything, another agent or anything like that. So the answer is no.
Okay.
We do think that configuration management is the right way to do stuff. If you have ad hoc changes, then I definitely recommend looking at other tools like nCollective or Rundeck. We do have integration to some degree. For example, Rundeck, we have a very, very strong integration using the search language, using the ability to use Rundeck and tell it, take this host group, take these hosts, and execute a command on them. So that's kind of maybe what you're looking for, and then that integration is very straightforward. So, you can consume that data and integrate it. Yeah.
I just want to mention, with the API, it would be very simple to take a tool like Capistrano or Fabric and put searches into your list of hosts that you want to deploy stuff on, like this web server production environment, blah, 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 do this SSH stuff.
Right, so I made a slide with all the stuff that I wanted to talk about, just in case you don't ask. So the console, we've seen it, that's the VNC integration basically. Fog is the middleware component that we talk about when we use multiple clouds. We actually contributed, I think also Puppet Labs did a great job and contributed to that library, and we did for libvirt and revamp. So that becomes a very popular library. The orchestration layer is when you deploy a system, a lot of things happen. As I mentioned, DNS, the VM is created, the storage for the VM is created, all kinds of small bits and bolts. So we have a very, I think, a fairly good layer to handle errors as well. So because we are automating a lot of stuff, we need to know if something breaks in the middle of provisioning or something breaks in the middle of configuring the initial system. We don't want to leave leftovers in your DNS, for example. So we know how to clean up properly. We know how to orchestrate it in the right order. And we even added in the latest version, the ability to see if your system was configured, but someone around the road deleted the DNS entry, for example. So you can fix it from here. On top of that, if you define a value which maybe someone left the DNS entry for something else, and you define a value, an IP address that you think is right, Foreman can basically delete the old DNS record, assuming you approved it, delete the old one and get it right to the state it's supposed to be, versus whatever is maybe set up manually. Provisioning template is the content which actually uses to do stuff like kickstart and all of the small PXE related stuff, or the post installation section of maybe in your EC2 deployment. So these are Puppet, similar to the Puppet templates. They're ERB based, and you could basically put whatever custom logic you got there, you want to use in it. They are rendered within safe mode, so you cannot hijack the server in a way. So, just in case someone does file read, etc shadow or something, that's not going to work. So we actually ensure that we actually restrict also within Foreman internals what you can access and what not. Besides that, SmartVars is an alternative to Ahira, or was there around about the same time. Is the ability, probably should show, choosing classes is not good enough, because classes usually have attributes or values that you want to consume, or the class wants to consume. So what we did was to create or to associate variables with classes. For example, I don't have a good example here, but the idea is, let me start with a new one. So the idea is, I want to create a variable, let's say the port, okay, the Apache port I want to consume. Then I want to give it maybe a default value. Now, obviously I want to override it for servers, or specific servers might want to override that value. And I want to ensure, but I want to ensure that that value would also be something that I pre-approve, maybe that goes along with my policy or whatever it is. So I can either define a regular expression or maybe a list of ports that say I'm only allowing 844, let's say 88. Then I need to define the order in which those variables are basically checked against. So by default, maybe I want to say that my FQDN has the higher priority. So if I define the value for that specific host, will have a good match. If not, I can go down to the host group or maybe fall back to some sort of a default. So basically, the idea here is to define how the value of this parameter, or this port, get actually realized. And then basically you have the ability to create certain matches. So let's say I'll say FQDN and my host of domain will get the value 80, for example. And you can create fairly complicated, so combinations of values, like maybe FQDN is very edge case, but maybe a host group and an environment, OS and the domain, I don't know, whatever combinations you want to do, you could basically limit that and get the right value for the right host. While this interface is complicated as it is, the idea is to expose this. At the end of it, it's not implemented yet completely, but the idea is that when you select the Apache class, you basically select, oh, I see there's a port definition here, and you go to drop down, saying, okay, 80 or 88, for example, basically what you define here. So again, delegating the complexity back to the user then basically can have a very simple way. And the screens are, relative to what content you got. And it's your content. So that's the idea. Right. That's SmartVars. Sorry for that. I know it's a complicated topic. Besides that, I did mention that we can work, all of these components can work together, or just reporting. You have a Puppet infrastructure, you can just use it for reporting, or maybe the whole thing, whatever you want. The installation, the Foreman installer I did mention. Under the hood, I didn't know if anyone wants to see a little bit how it works internally, but one thing worth mentioning is that you can choose your own database. So Postgres, MySQL, probably are the best two candidates. We do support SQLite, just for, you know, if you want to play around. I did hear someone doing it on Oracle. I never tried, but it might work as well. Because we're using Rails, and maybe I didn't mention that. Yeah.
Is it possible to have encrypted facts?
Sorry?
Encrypted facts?
What about them?
Is it possible?
Well, so you want...
Say I wanted to store a password.
Yeah. Okay, so as far as it goes to encryption, the problem with encryption is that you also need to decrypt them, right? So if you store something encrypted, but still have the possibility to decrypt it, it's as good as keeping it in plain text. We were really thinking about using the Puppet certificate as a way to encrypt stuff and store, you know, those kind of stuff encrypted. We have the same problem with EC2, for example, credentials, right? We don't want to, but we do keep them as clear text in the database for now. So I don't have a better solution. The only other solution is to create some smaller sub-service which provides the passwords, yet another daemon or some service, like the OpenStack model do that. But we're trying all the time to make it as simple for the user to use and consume, and at the end of the day, they still keep it in clear text. So, yeah. Yep.
You want to maybe pull up the interface and show people what the options are and see if there's anything anybody wants to see?
Which,
The demo piece.
yeah. Oh,
Like
yeah.
more, or like, for example, like what's the difference between audits and reports?
Okay. So reports are basically public reports. We've seen, you know, what we saw before. Audit is things that happen within Foreman's interface. That means here is I just added the SSL to a host, so you could probably see that I've created an association between the host and the class. So you can see that the user added that class to this host. If we look at another audit, probably we can see that here is probably where we created the system initially, and here are all the new values that it has. So creation is maybe not that interesting, but basically we track creation, deletion, you know, modification. So these are what the audit is about. So allow you to see which user changed what. At the moment, there's no rollback, but we do keep the information, so potentially, we'll have time, we'll implement a rollback functionality as well. Any other, you know?
Can you pull up the more thing just so we can see what's in there?
Yeah. Sorry, I clicked on statistics. So, yeah, so just to show, I mean, all of our graphs are, by the way, are dynamic, so you could, you know, like, I want to see those holes, so just click on that, and it basically uses the search, internal search language to figure that out. More, yeah, what we have here. Architecture, not very interesting, but it's the way we define our architectures. The main reason it's there is because when you do Spark deployment, it matters. So that's the way. Bookmarks is actually a very useful feature. So I did mention that, but you could define your own tabs here on the bottom. Like I've created my definition of search language. So the idea is I created here something saying my last report was whatever, and so on. And then I decide I want to bookmark it. So I'll just give it a name, and then it comes up as a drop down here. So now I have this search basically saved. The search is where it can get complicated. It works on all screens. So if I want to see only my development environment, I could bookmark this one as well, and basically save it. So, you know, if you want to create some users can create their own, and this would be public bookmark. So, if a user always search for something, basically, you know, save some time. What else? compute resources, where we define the, basically the remote infrastructure for compute. So, for example, here, I could, by the way, lack of a better name, someone has a better name, but the idea is here we choose the provider we want to use. So for example, for EC2, you have to put in the access key and eventually you see the regions. For VMware, you have to put in the username and password, which is added and stored in the database. It's very similar, or virtual RevM, very similar to VMware. And these are the ones we have implemented at the moment. Then, if you have such a, you could basically see all of the VMs that are running on it and that are yours, and do something like maybe these are machines that are not necessarily managed by Foreman, but you can still have some basic functionality. Actually, it's hidden behind the scene that you could also get console access to them. I was not sure if I want to allow console access to other machines that are not yours, so it's not visible here, but if you know the URL, you can basically add /console after that, get the machine, you get it. But, it gives you some sort of a standardized way to reach and see. Here you can see we have a open. You can see we have some OpenStack playing around machine and so on. So we're trying to figure out. When I say trying, the core Foreman is 1.5 persons. So we're trying to get support for all the little things, but can't always do it. Yeah.
Right, so if you have a couple of groups in an organization that have separate credentials for their compute providers, how do you set that up? Can you separate that?
Yeah, the idea is that we create a compute resource for each and every one of those. So maybe, for example, you have an account associated with Quota, and you want to associate, so let's say EC2 credentials that you want to only use to some degree. So only some subset of users should be using that, other users might need to use another thing. So the idea is that you can associate a region in EC2 and the user, and that you call it something. Maybe in another context that would be something else, a different password, different region, I don't know. I know this area goes very, very complicated, like talking about clouds, quotas, and so on. This is like a whole set of restrictions. I just came back from a whole week discussing about this stuff, so that is not trivial to implement, but at the moment we offer a fairly simplistic view of assuming there is some RBAC of whatever, let's say, limitation of that user, that you can utilize that, not just always use the admin user. So if it's VMware that allow you to create only a certain storage and store it in a data center or whatever, then you map it within Foreman. Cool. Other more. So domains is just where we define the domains and whether we manage DNS for those. Environments is Puppet environments. We do have before the smart cars were created, we had a way to define, also create some sort of a hierarchy for parameters or how to resolve those, but the hierarchy order was fixed, so it means there were global variables, and maybe domain variables, and then maybe host group, and if there is a match, the best one or the highest priority basically gets the match. So this is what we had before the smart variables, and probably will stay there for a while, but eventually will be replaced. So global variables is just a way to say all of my machines, my local user password will be this. So this is the default password for whatever. And you could override that in a host per host group, and so on. Hypervisors is the previous screen for libvirt. So before that we just had libvirt, and that will go away. All of these installation media, operating system, and provisioning templates, and so on, all related to PXE booting. Unless someone wants to see that, I won't necessarily force you to go through that. We have the Puppet classes, where we saw that before. Roles, settings. settings is generic settings for the application. So, for example, all kinds of things that makes Foreman, you could do all kind of changes here, email addresses, I don't know how many pages, entries per page, and so on, all kind of basic settings.
I got a question about the puppet classes.
Yeah.
Does that update automatically from my?
Okay, so the way it
codex?
works, we have a smart proxy, a Foreman proxy, which basically has the Puppet functionality. That means it's running on a Puppet master, okay? Where the synchronization of the manifest is basically not done automatically. Rather, it's done manually via import process. So you have the ability to import. I'm not sure if there's any differences between my manifest. Oh, wait, bad. My proxy is not running, but basically here you will see a diff between what's currently in Foreman versus what's in the proxy, or actually deployed on the file system on the Puppet Master, and you can sync them. Yeah, this is the manual.
This is manual?
Sorry?
That's a manual only process?
Right, so you synchronize manually. I mean, you could automate it very easily, but I didn't think that forcing it to be synchronizing automatically is a good idea. Yes.
Can you cluster a Foreman installation?
Yeah.
Can you point it to the same database, or?
Yes. So, assuming you take MySQL or Postgres, you can easily do replicas or master configuration for the database. You could use, since it's a Rails app, you could use deploy it on multiple hosts and then use a load balancer in front to decide which host to go. We actually store the session information within the database, so there's no problem to jump between instances, between various Foreman hosts. And if you really have a large environment, you can even use Memcache to delegate some of the work. So it should scale like any other Rails app. Awesome. What else did we cover? Maybe just the subnets. That you can see your own subnets and define stuff like that. So maybe last slide, I think. So this is just an example of how we do kind of the approach for whether it's bare metal or PXE-based versus image-based deployment. So the idea here is that we use fog as a middleware, and eventually you get some sort of an instance running, and we automate and manage it with Puppet. Good. Yep.
Do you want to talk about the roadmap or the recent about to be released features or versions or anything like that?
Sure. So at the moment, Foreman has done current official stable release is 0.2. That was released, I guess, 4 months ago.
No, 0.4.
2. What did I say? Okay.
Sounded like you said 0.2.
Oh, sorry, 0.42. I think all in all it would be around the 20th release. We had allowed the naming convention or versioning convention. So I think Foreman had around about 20 releases or 15 releases so far. We are looking forward towards a newer version. The main changes we had were around the multi-cloud or multi-virtualization providers deployments. We had a lot of smaller features. We changed quite a bit of the UI, improvement in, we use Twitter Bootstrap, so some changes there. I don't remember by heart, actually. I didn't do the release notes yet, so I don't remember exactly all of the features that got in. But we might not call it 0.5 and maybe something towards 1.0 eventually, or something with a saner version. What was the other thing you asked about? Roadmap. Yeah, what's next? So, image-based deployment is not as it should be. So I guess at the moment, Foreman model works really good with just enough OS as a starting point. So really nothing in it, and Puppet